Hey everyone, welcome to Stitchwork Creations. In this video I'm working on a swap doll between some other doll artists on Instagram. I'm using a well-loved Julia Yelps doll head for this swap, and I clean her up in my usual way. I have a video, which I've linked below, which has a more detailed guide on how to craft dolls. But for a body I'm going to use this Create a Monster doll. These bodies are great for modelling as they come apart and click together really easily. So I'm going to add some skeletal limbs as part of my take on the Slavic myth of Rusalka. Before I reroute the doll, I'll paint her scalp in a similar colour to the hair that I want to use. This time round I'm going to be using another Shimmerlocks hair called Baby Blonde, which is absolutely gorgeous to use, and my homemade rerouting tool. I've also a video on how to reroute dolls. If you want to have a look, I'll link that below as well. After cutting the hair to twice its desired length, I'll take a few strands and loop it through the eye of the needle that's been cut. And then at the halfway point, I'll stab it into the head, and the pressure of the hair will hold it in there until I can glue it in properly. I always find the party needs twice as much hair as you think it does, because you're rerouting 2 rows at a time and you have to make sure they're thick and they crisscross so there isn't any gaps in the scalp. I've borrowed my other half's helping hands from his electronics kit to hold her head. These things are so useful. This time around, I've sketched an idea of how I want her eyes to look. I want to give her a mournful and innocent look, which has seemed to have become a theme in my dolls recently. I do have other stuff that I can do, I promise. Once I've sketched the outline of her face in a light colour, I can start building up the depth of colours in her eyes with pencils and blushing on her face. If I've made any mistakes on the layer, I can use a rubber or a kneadable eraser for a finer, lighter touch to get rid of any of the mistakes. This was a swap that was between 6 artists on Instagram, and I will set the link below so you can have a look at the hashtag Mythical Creature Swap 2021. My partner Amok Dolls requested a Slavic fairy tale or folk tale and gave me a couple of names to look up, and I decided that Rusalka was the one that interested me the most. Rusalka is a malicious entity and is frequently associated with bodies of water. However, in Slavic pagan tales, Rusalka was considered a spirit linked with fertility, and not evil at all. She would come out of the spring and bring life-giving water to the fields and nurture the crops. However, later in the 19th century, the tales twisted slightly, so they tell of an unquiet and dangerous spirit of a girl who has met an untimely end, drowning or being drowned in whichever body of water she haunts. She is said to lure young men to the waters, seduced by her beauty or her voice, before she drowns them. Like many folk tales from over the world, Rusalka has similarities to others. Sailors told of mermaids or sirens who would lure men to their doom with their beauty or their voice, singing them songs, calling them to their death. Now I've sealed the first layer of blush and line work, I can begin to build up the layers of colours. With the hair being so fair, I'm using a base of beige and using a straw yellow and white to highlight the individual hairs of her eyebrows. To make her eyes striking, I've used yellow as a base, and then I'll build up layers of green in the layers so that her eyes are bright and sparkling. To get a better colour payoff, and to get into the crevices of her face, I wet a brush and draw the pigment straight off the pencil. If I make any mistakes here, I can use water to just wipe it off and start again. I'm using the back of my hand to reduce the amount of water I have on the brush. This way I can pick up more colour and it's less watery and a bit more concentrated. Off camera I've built up the waterline and the lashes with dark browns and a charcoal grey. To deepen the outer circle of her iris I'm using a blue to give it a big dose of colour. Makes her eyes look like avocados. And then finally black in her pupils and to deepen her lash line and her lashes. I've tried to keep this face up minimal and try and give her a more ethereal feel, her eyes being the point of interest to draw you in. I wanted Rusalka to have a gentle wave at the ends of her hair. I'm using some old, cleaned electrical wire bits, wrapping the hair around them and then twisting them to hold them in place. I've done this previously with a candy doll, and I was impressed with the results. She had some mad curls. They were great. I only did half of her head as a trial run. I wasn't sure if I wanted the curls so tight. So dunking the hair in boiling water and then some cold water and repeating a couple of times, this sets the curl. I left it on the side to dry overnight. Unfortunately this time the curls were too tight for what I wanted and it made her hair seem frizzy. So after testing a piece of hair left over, I found that my mini straighteners were the perfect temperature for this nylon. I redid the frizzy ends, making them a bit more wavy by using my little straighteners. How cute are these little baby blonde waves? To age the appearance of the bone limbs, I've painted them with an off-white and then left them to dry. Her body then gets an extreme exfoliation treatment to rough up the skin so I can blush her with pastels. And back to the bones. Using a watered down dark brown acrylic, I give the limbs a wash with a colour to give them some depth and get into all the little crooks of the sculpting of the limbs. And then when they're dry, I give them a dry brush with some white acrylic paint. And now for some clothes. I looked at traditional Slavic outfits and set my sights on making a sarafan. This is a long dress or a skirt that's often in red, blues, wine reds or whites. And they were often worn over a Rusalka, which is an oversized, elaborately embroidered shirt. I make a pattern with some baking paper and mark it on the fabric. After cutting out the fabric, I pin and sew the sides together, and then the centre back, leaving a space for her bum to fit in. With some clear press studs, I put a fastening on the skirt. I also later on alter the sides of the seam so that it fits better. At the moment it's a little baggy. This is my first attempt at embroidery. I've drawn the pattern pieces onto some linen fabric and then gone over the lines with some fray check, just in case, and then drawn guidelines for my pattern. As you can see, this tends to go in and out of focus with the movement of my hand moving up and down towards the camera as I was sewing. So to save your eyes as much as I can, there are large chunks of this that are missing because they just were really badly recorded. So hopefully you can keep up, and I'm sorry about that. I used a red thread to add some extra colour to the embroidery and tie in the colour of the skirt. I feel that this bulked out the pattern a bit more and made it a bit more intricate. And then, this is where I decided no collar. I preferred the other design, so it didn't get cut out and it didn't get added. Oh well. With my sewing scissors, I cut out the pieces and I get ready to sew the shirt together. And now for the bit I really hate, which is easing the sleeves into the shoulders of the shirt. Easing sleeves on a person-sized garment is hard enough, but this is tiny. And because it's a paint pin, to keep the ruffles even, I hand stitch it, which I also don't like doing, but hey ho, there we go. I'm doing a back stitch, so it should join the fabric without leaving any gaps at all, making it a very secure seam. Then once that fiddly bugger's done, there's another sleeve. But at least with editing, you get to miss that frustration. Ta-da! Sleeve 2. The neck has been given another line of fray check where I cut a split. Whilst the shirt's inside out, I sew together the side seams and the inseam on the sleeves, and then turn it the right way with my trusty forceps. I did a quick running stitch around the neck and then a teeny blanket stitch down the sides of the split, and then putting a last minute drawstring at the top so if needed the top could be tied together. And while I was doing that, I dipped the end of the flipping thread in the brown paint. I was ready to give it all up and throw it in the bin, but luckily I managed to wash the brown paint off the white fabric, and that was a good relief. And then some Velcro strips on the back. Finally, the Rusalka is done. In many of the images I found of the women wearing sarafans, they often had belts in the middle or just under their bust line to hold the dress up. I'm guessing clothes were made to last, so they were made oversized and they could be pulled in with a belt, and as they were growing from girls to women, they would keep the same dresses, they would fit them regardless. So, using some faux leather and some tiny belt buckles from I Sew for Doll, I'll put a link in the box below, I bodged a belt with that and a paper crafting brad. The belt part of this has been filmed on my new camera and I'm still getting used to it, so I apologise if it's all a bit jumpy. I'm still trying to get used to some new equipment. After putting the outfit together, I felt that the skirt was lacking a bit, so using my machine's embroidery stitch and some blue ribbon, I've added a leafy pattern with some gold thread. It's spring here in the UK and some of my garden has sprung into life, making a lovely backdrop for Rusalka. Please let me know what you think of her and my take on the Slavic fairy tale. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you want to see some more. If you've got any questions or some advice or any tips that you want to share or any suggestions for future dolls, please leave a comment below. And if you want, you can come and find me on Instagram or on my little Etsy shop. There are links at the end of the video. Thanks for staying, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!